Our speakers have both have a ton of experience, even speaking at LAMP. They have great content, which is always good, and with the experience, they deliver it in a very good and learning and worthwhile fashion. So you're going to be excited and you're going to pick up a lot. Let me give you just a brief description of their talk. You're going to find they're going to share at least the key elements of building a strong leadership culture. That's number one. And then they're going to help us identify what our individual leadership or coaching styles are. And then they're going to finish up with giving us some tips and some strategies in how we can even coach more effectively than what we already are. Let me just give you just a little bit of their experience. I don't want to go too deep because we want to save time for them. First, Mike Esterday is the CEO of Integrity Solutions. He comes out of the sales field. Okay, he's had number one sales out of like 6,000 people. Then he was in management, grew up a lot, managed a lot of people to a top firm. And then he actually became an entrepreneur. He actually started a company and developed 36 franchises. And then he got Integrity Solutions. And at that point, that's been around for 25 years. So there's a lot of experience here, not only with the content, but they're delivering. In fact, they've spoken both, Terri and Mike spoke at previous LAMPs, pre-LAMPs, regular LAMPs, and other workshops. So they're going to be great. What else do I want to share with you about this? With Terri, she has over 20 years as Vice President of Client Development. She's been partnering with a lot of organizations, not just LAMP, a lot of diversity of different styles of careers, number one, but a lot of different type of people and coaches. So we got a lot of insights from that as well. Again, she was at GAMA 2014 and pre-LAMP 2015. So why don't we give them an enthusiastic welcome, both Mike and Terri. Come on, let's give them a round of applause. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to be as excited as I am when we're done.
Thank you, Dan.
All right.
Woo! Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that.
Sneaking up.
Good afternoon. Have you had a good LAMP so far? We're going to talk about coaching this afternoon. How many in your career have had a really good coach at some point? Have any of you had a bad coach? I think I saw more hands on the bad coach than the good. I can't help but think back to one of the bad coaches I had early in my career. His name was Alan. I won't tell you his last name. But the first time he rode with me, I learned what this was all about. Because he had this yellow pad, and he wrote down things all day long. He had pages and pages of things to write about what was going on. I thought he was writing good things that I was doing. That night at dinner, I found out that was not the case. Everything I did wrong, it seems like that day, all day long, is what I did wrong. So some managers think the way you grow people is by pointing out what they do wrong, and others by praising and looking what's right. We're going to look at what are some tips that successful managers have used to really build teams over the years. Now, there's a variety of things we'll be doing, but if we look at the objectives, we're going to understand some of the key elements for building that coaching culture, as Dan said. We'll then assess your leadership style. We'll look at 5 drivers of success for building others, and then we'll give you some practical tips. You've got a handout there. How many don't have a handout? Anybody doesn't have a handout? Okay, if you don't, it's on your app. But in that handout, we'll go to walk through a whole bunch of little tools you can take back and use. So with that, why do we coach? It's kind of a duh question, but yes, why do we coach? Well, a lot of studies have shown, this example is 88% increase in productivity versus 23% when you combine training with coaching. How many times have you done training and people intellectually know what to do, but the managers don't know it, and they don't model it, coach it, and lead it? So we've got to combine those two together.
The cost of...
Before we jump into this, we interviewed several people to kind of co-facilitate with us, and you'll see 3 different managers sharing some tips on how to effectively coach and kind of set up the topic. The first one, Tracy, will take a few seconds to hear what she has to say.
The cost of turnover and the cost of hiring people is so great. And the great people you have, you want to see do more, and you want to give them those opportunities. The workforce is getting younger and younger. This is what they ask for. This is what they thrive on, is they want to be coached, they want to be mentored, and they want to have development opportunities so they can grow within an organization.
Okay, Terry?
Tracy said some great insights there at the last that really apply to all of us as we're growing that next generation of advisors and millennials. They really want to be mentored, they want to be coached, and they want to have development opportunities so they know where they're headed and how best to go there. As we look at the whole aspect of the players won't play if the coaches don't coach, what are some challenges that you've had or that you've observed others have as you're coaching or thinking about coaching? What are some challenges? Just yell some of those out.
Advisors want to take responsibility.
Okay, advisors not taking responsibility. What else are some challenges with coaching? Complacency. Thank you. Couple more. Discovering what they want, what's really important to them. Thank you. One more. Okay. Okay, commitment and excuses, how to deal with those. You're not alone with challenges. We've done some recent surveys with leaders and managers, and Mike's going to take us through some of those challenges that consistently come up around coaching. So, Mike?
Yeah, we surveyed several hundred managers, and some of the most common things we came up with are holding people accountable, finding the right people, selection obviously, creating a high-performance team, providing difficult feedback, motivating people, dealing with negativity. They're too busy, don't have time to coach. The drama within the team, nobody probably has that. Coaching low performers or top performers, knowing how to coach, coaching through change, coaching up, coaching leaders, listening instead of judging, and finally managing versus coaching, the difference between those two.
Okay. And how many of you have had at least one or two of those challenges that came up? And boy, there was a hand that went up like that. Absolutely, absolutely. As we go even deeper into the topic of coaching, in your handout, you'll see on pages 3 and 4, there's some open spaces there for you if you want to jot down some things that you think about, some key points. And there's some great nuggets in the next video that we're going to see from the coaches that are co-facilitating with us about their definition of coaching.
If you go back 100 years ago, a coach was not sports related at all. A coach was a carriage, if you will, and it was a horse-drawn carriage. But what it was used for was taking very important people from where they are to where they want to be. And our job as a coach is to help uncover, all right, where do they want to go, and how can I help them get there?
I define coaching as a way of improving performance. I really feel it's a relationship where you've got an opportunity to see something more in someone than they see in themselves. I think managing is more tactical. I think coaching is more strategic.
I loved what the first coach said about a coach really wasn't about sports in the beginning. A coach was a carriage that took very important people from where they are to where they want to be. And then Tracy mentioned that managing is tactical, coaching is strategic, and that's kind of the art and science of coaching, kind of the skill and also the emotional side of coaching as well. And the third thing that stuck out for me that Tracy mentioned, and that's going to lead us into our first activity, is that coaching is a relationship. It's really where you have an opportunity to see something more in people than they see in themselves. How many of you who have had at least one person in your life that saw more in you than you saw in yourself? Anyone? Absolutely. And what an impact that person makes throughout your life. And so on page 5 in your handout, you're going to have an opportunity to either reflect on that person or another person who saw more in you than you saw in yourself. And there's 4 questions there. 1, identifying that one person who saw potential in you that you didn't see in yourself. 2, what potential did he or she see in you? And 3, what did he or she do or say to cause you to discover the potential within yourself? And 4, what happened to you as a result? So think of one person. It can have happened last week. It can have happened when you were 4 or 5 years old. And just take a minute to jot down and reflect on that person. Pardon? A handout? Okay. There's one right up here. Thank you so much. Okay. So we'll take a minute for you to fill that in, and then we're going to share some of those insights. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for coming back together. Thank you for some great discussions. Thank you. Thank you for coming back together. It's always dangerous to let a group like this loose, but great to have those discussions. As you thought about that person who had such an impact on your life, would you share just some of the people, not their name, but were they a neighbor, a parent, a coach, a teacher, a 4-H leader? Who were some of those people who had an impact on your life? Anyone willing to share that? A teacher. Your mommy. Okay, great. What? Oh, a colleague. Great. Grandma. Okay. Spouse. Absolutely. Your first manager. Okay, incredible. How many of you, was it a person that it was in the last year? Okay. How many in 1 to 5 years that you thought about? How many in 10 years that you thought of? How many 20 years? Wow. More than 20? Isn't it amazing how far back sometimes that person who had an impact on you can continue on through your life? And as we think about the advisors, the leaders that we have the opportunity to coach, wouldn't it be interesting in a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 or more years from now, if they did an activity like this and you were the person that they wrote down that had the most impact on their life? What a legacy you're building for the future. And as we, in this session, help you build that legacy for the future, we're going to share 4 powerful tips for coaching effectiveness. And the first tip is really about understanding your advisors, or understanding yourself. Second is understanding your advisors. The third is the power of preparation. And the fourth is the power of the coaching process. And Mike's going to come up and start us through the first powerful tip, understanding yourself.
This morning in the session, you probably heard Bob Fasciano quote Jack Welch, and I couldn't help but jot that down to share with you today. And Jack Welch said, "You have no right to be a leader if you don't have it in your soul to build others." Remember seeing that this morning? It really is true, isn't it? We really shouldn't be a leader, we shouldn't be a coach if we don't want to build other people. So let's look at some ideas around our own leadership styles And on page 6 in your handout, we're going to look at 4 quadrants of different leadership styles. Now, up on the screen, if you look at that first, on the bottom, we have goal focus. We find that some people, as managers, are extremely focused on getting results on the goal. That's their total focus. On the left-hand side, you see it says people focus. Others have a focus so much on people, perhaps too much at times, at the detriment of reaching their goals. So if we combine those two together, we look at 4 different quadrants. Let's look at the top left first. The people who have high people focus and a low goal focus, these people are really nice. They love their people. They're going to do everything they can to help their people. They're probably too nice to their people because they don't hold them accountable to get the results that they need to get. Jump down to the bottom right. Quadrant 4, a low people focus, but a high goal focus. I've got a good friend who's been very successful in business, but this is his style, and he will literally run over you. He is so goal focused, he has almost no sensitivity, has almost no emotional intelligence with people. So there's lots of turnover and lots of folks running through his organization. On the bottom left, low people and low goal focus, realistically, those folks are not going to be strong managers. If you don't care that much for people and you're not results-oriented, that's definitely a problem. So what we're looking for is the top right, to be more goal-focused and people-focused, to have that balance. And literally, there's really not many people that are naturally number 2. Most people tend to have one or the other, either more goal or more people. And the question is, how do I ramp up or ramp down different things depending on the person, depending on the situation? So let's do this quick activity. On page 6, think about yourself and be as honest as you can be. Nobody else is going to see this. So check off on those little quadrants descriptors of yourself. Best you can, put a little check or an X to the left of what's true about you. And let me give you just real quick. The quicker you do it, the better. And don't worry about which quadrant you're in, because we're going to all have probably some of these checks in all 4 of the quadrants. And let's give you about 30 seconds quickly to check off those ideas about you. Okay? Yes, to repeat the instructions, if you simply check off which of those descriptions describe you as a manager. Okay, good, thank you. Hey, Blake, one right here. Okay, we almost done? Quick note at the bottom of that page, 3 points to remember. Number 1 is, few people are a single quadrant style. Most have traits that fall into at least 2 quadrants, sometimes 3. Usually 1 quadrant will be more dominant. Number 2, moving into quadrant 2 is a growth process that involves work and effort. Point number 3 at the bottom is few people have a perfect balance of being people-focused and goal-focused. So let's take that information and think about yourself over on the next page, page 7. As we think about your current leadership style compared with what you would like to have, maybe you're too much in one quadrant and you want to move towards one of the others. Let's talk about how you might set some goals to do that. You got 3 questions there. Let me give you about a minute or so to answer those 3, and then we'll talk about what we'll do with that information. So how would you describe your current leadership style? How would you consider to be your greatest strengths? And what qualities of leadership would you like to further develop? Okay, let's take about 1 minute to respond to those 3 questions. Okay, if you're not finished yet, let's continue. Just be thinking about your responses. If you would select one of those that you wouldn't mind sharing with your neighbor, and let's take about a minute or so, and each of you share one of the responses you had to one of those 3 questions, either describing your leadership style, your greatest strength, or something you'd like to further develop. So give you about 1 minute to share that with a neighbor. Timing is pretty good, I think. For 2 hours of coaching, if you do 1 extra hour, it's a 17% increase.
I just took that right out of what we had on our slides for that, or what we had on some slides for a webinar. So, yeah.
Let's take about 30 seconds, about 30 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming back together. If you can hear my voice, if you clap once. If you'd hear my voice, if you clap twice. All righty, thank you very much. Hopefully you've learned a few things about yourself there. I'd like to share with you another concept, and the concept we call the law of limited performance. And what this is if you think about your advisors, people soon discover the level of performance their managers will settle for, and then gravitate to that level. Managers then assume that's all people are capable of achieving, so they accept this notion and don't challenge them to get better. So think about that. Has that ever happened to you? Is there ways perhaps we're doing things to do that to our advisors? The bottom line is, therefore, both tend to reinforce each other. So many studies. If you think back to teachers and children, the studies that have shown that teachers believe this person is a low performer, they get in the slow class when they're really brilliant. How many times do we do that with our advisors? They do something, they say something, they make a mistake, and we label them on their forehead and say, they're not going to be making it. Or they're just average.
People have to want to get off of a plateau, and we have to see them at a higher level than they see themselves and challenge them to reach that level. Now, it becomes very important that I know what motivates that person and that I understand their motivation, because that's what's going to cause them to put the extra effort in required to get to the next level. Interesting fact, though, most will not, they don't like being held accountable until they see the benefits of accountability.
Okay, so let's talk about how we might break that law of limited performance. It really starts with us. It starts with you as a manager. And here are 4 tips. And these are not in your handout, but they're in the app. If you want to download that, I'd be glad to send this to you. Number 1, identify your beliefs about that person. What are the limiting beliefs that I have about that person? Then think about how I communicate that. When there's a big task, do I give it to certain people? I leave this one out? Do I talk down about that person? Do I praise him or her in front of others? What am I doing that communicates I believe in you or I don't believe in you? Number 3, list new beliefs you want to have. And 4, begin communicating these beliefs to them. The bottom quote says, change your internal beliefs about your people and you'll see them change. Now let me give you another little tip. And this is, if you get a little 3x5 card and write down the name of a person that you want to help develop. If you just write 2 things down. One is write down their strengths that you see in them. We're going to call this a strength card. Everything you can think about them on one side of the card that's a positive. On the back side of the card, write down, quote, strengths that you would like to see them improve in. We're not going to call them weaknesses or areas for improvement, but where do they have potential that they're not exhibiting? Carry the card with you, and whenever you see any of those things on either side of the card, point it out to them, compliment them, and guess what will happen? We'll see more of that. So, breaking that law of limited performance. The next model I'd like to share with you is on page 8. And on page 8, we have 5 dimensions in what we call the congruence, the coaching congruence model. And let me walk through this, and then we'll look at how you might use this in the real world. The first one on the top left is a circle called view of coaching. If we could get inside your heads, my head, your other managers' heads, what do we think coaching is? Is coaching activity management? Is it pointing out what people are wrong? Is it praising them? Is it developing people? What is coaching? We believe it's developing people to their fullest potential. So what do I view coaching as being? Number 2 is view of my abilities. Do I think I have the ability to be a successful coach? Well, maybe I'm a new manager. I was a successful advisor, and do I really believe I can step up and do this? And does that come through that I have confidence that I can be a successful manager? The third one is values, and we got that in the center on purpose because values, we believe, are at the core of being successful as a manager or as an advisor. It says in your handout there, I possess a high degree of internal sincerity, conscientiousness, and honesty that drives my coaching behaviors. The fourth one is commitment to activities. Am I willing to do it? Or I don't have time. I'm busy recruiting. I'm busy putting out fires. Do I have time? Yes, I've got time if I want to make time. And finally, belief in people. Do I have a belief in people, like that Jack Welch quote? Deep down in my soul, that I believe these people will be successful. I believe in them, and I want to help them achieve their goals. Now, between these circles, you see some arrows. The arrows stand for gaps. A gap is a problem. And it might be that I have a strong belief in my people, I have positive values, but I'm not committed to doing the activities to do the coaching. Maybe I don't plan for a coaching session. I just kind of shoot from the hip. Maybe I don't actually do the coaching. That incongruence, that being out of alignment, will hold me back from being successful. Maybe I have them all right, but my view of coaching is to beat people up. I was working with the CEO of a major company that you'd recognize, and he said, why would we praise people? You know, they praise themselves. He said, I need to show them where they're doing things wrong. You know? He left. He became much more successful when he left. What we want to do is our goal is to bring these into what we call alignment or congruence. It's as if you have 5 little quarters that are together. You stack them together, you put a piece of tape around them, and you could roll them down the table. They're in alignment, they're in congruence, and we have a higher percentage of us in the room that view coaching as building people. I have the ability to do that. Yes, I can do it. It's consistent with my values. I'm willing to do it. I understand how to do it and willing to do it. And I believe in my people. I'm going to do whatever is possible to help them succeed. Now, let's look at the bottom. There's another place to quickly assess yourself. And if you would rate yourself 1 to 10 on those comments, those little definitions, and best you can, how would you rate yourself? 1 is the worst, 10 is the very best. Where are you congruent or not congruent? Okay, we've taken time to look at ourselves. Secondly, now let's look at our advisors. And Terri will come up and talk about how we might understand our advisors more effectively.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. In the last video, our coach, Mike Fisher, said a couple of things that really resonate about understanding your advisors. One, he said, know what motivates them. Know what makes them excited, what gets them up in the morning. And then also seeing more potential in them than they see in themselves, and then coaching or challenging them to get to that next level. How many of you have advisors who are on a plateau, a performance plateau? Anybody? Okay, we've got some out there. As you look at your advisors too, would you just turn to a neighbor and share what percentage you believe what percentage of your people might be on plateaus. So if you don't have any on plateaus, that's great, 0%. But just try to kind of look at your people. What percentage would you guess they're on plateaus? And share that with a neighbor. Okay. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you for your sharing. As we come back together, what were some of the percentages that you heard or that you shared? What were some of the percentages of people on plateaus? 50%? Any others? 20, 25%? Other 40%? Any other different numbers?
There is a comment that some persons have not even done enough to have started and then level off.
Okay, so they haven't even started. Okay, can your high performers be on plateaus? Absolutely, absolutely, and you aren't alone. We see it across other industries, we see it across organizations, we see it globally, that people often get to that comfort level, and it's our opportunity to really help see more in them and challenge them and coach them to the next level. Let me ask you another question. As you think about your advisors, why do advisors with similar skills and experience perform at different levels? I think we've all had the person that comes in and has industry knowledge, maybe has product knowledge, and we think they're really going to be a superstar, and they just don't make it. And then we see another person come in, and they maybe aren't even from the industry, they don't have product knowledge, but they have that something special that when that brick wall comes up in front of them, they've figured out a way to climb it or go around it or go under it. And as we've looked at people, professionals in the financial services arena for the last 45 years, there are a couple of areas that we've figured out what causes that success. And even though knowledge and technical skills are incredibly important and increasing every day, what we found is that it's about 15% of what impacts a person's success, and the 85% comes from those inner dimensions that make that person go over the brick wall or around or under it, the attitudes, values, beliefs, motives, and achievement drive. So as we look deeper into what causes success, we've asked one of our coaches this question, and Gary's going to take us deeper into what causes success.
And I know a lot of Hall of Fame members. And I would say the vast majority of those people from a technical standpoint are average, but they're world class on the other side. So you can't be a bumbling idiot and survive in our business. But we have so many backroom people that if you're very, very good at building relationships, getting people to trust you, and if they like you, and then engaging with them in a process to help them self-discover, you don't need to know product until very, very late into the process. And in fact, you can take that back to people that can help you with that, and they can help you build the right program to fit the client, but they can't help you get to that point with the client. So I don't know if it's 80-20 or 75-20, but to me, it's well over 50% in terms of that significance in terms of them leaning that direction versus the skills and product knowledge and those things.
Okay, on the next page of your handout, we had a coaching congruence model. Let's look at the sales congruence model. Let's shift the idea and looking at the advisor. This model has the same three things in the center: the view of their abilities to be successful in sales, positive values, and my commitment to do the activities necessary to be successful in sales. We've changed out two of the others. What we've seen over the years, view of selling is key for advisors. What do they think selling is? I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and it's probably about 10 years old. I was with my father in the barnyard, and we lived on a gravel road, so you can always tell when somebody's coming because the dust was coming up over the hill. And my dad recognized his car as a salesperson. And he turned to me before the guy came up the lane, and he told me what was about to happen to us. Not for us, but to us. And sure enough, the guy got out, and he was all fancy dressed. We weren't very dressed up on the farm. And I'll never forget that smile he had and what he talked about to this day. And I'm sure that 10-year-old experience impacted my view of what selling is. Well, how many positive things do we have out there to talk about selling? How many movies have you seen that are positive about selling? Tin Men, Wolf of Wall Street, some really nasty ones. What do you see on TV that's positive about selling? So what we see is that people that have a positive view of selling, that see it as identifying needs, filling needs, and creating value for people, they have a stronger sense of mission to make a difference. They don't feel like they're taking advantage of people or they're just pushing a product. On the far right is belief in product. And that is believing that the products I sell are worthwhile, create value, but it's more than that. Because in today's society, in this market, we have lots of product parity, don't we? A lot of companies here in the room that sell very similar products. And maybe a company comes up and has a better product next year than we do. But so it's not just product, it's the value of that product. Number two, it's the company that stands behind it. And number three, do I believe in myself and the value that I bring to that client? When we bring these into alignment, into congruence, we find that achievement drive is released from advisors and they tend to sell more. Now, the things we're sharing with you, Gary, for example, on the video, he has a 40+% retention rate by the fourth year of his advisors. So we're not just kind of spouting off ideas. We're sharing with you ideas that have really worked for folks out there in the field to recruit and retain and improve productivity of their people. For time's sake, we'll let you fill that out on one of your advisors later. But if you take that sales congruence model and just make a copy of it if you want to, you'll think about your advisors, rate them, and what I bet you'll find is you'll have some really valuable conversations around those. Now, to help you have conversations, and our goal here today is to give you lots of practical stuff, on the next couple pages, pages 10 and 11, we've got like a library of ideas of how to coach to this. So if you fill this out with one of your advisors, and they're a low score in view of selling, here's what you've got. The bullet points are potential problems, potential issues in your handout there. The arrows are coaching ideas. So if you see there's a problem, there's 3 examples of how to coach that person under each of those. So a little library of ideas, therefore. If you'd like to learn more, just let us know. Now, how do we expand their beliefs in what they're doing? A quick model here. If this X is me, you, your advisors, and if we could put on this screen or on a flip chart all of the beliefs we have. Terri talked about how 85% of our success often is our beliefs. What would they be? How much money do I think I can earn? Who are the kind of clients I can call on? I can sell this product. I'm not going to sell that product. Here's the kind of house I can live in. Here's how much money I can make, for retirement. All the different things, hundreds and thousands of things that make up our belief system. If we could connect those dots, all of our actions, our feelings, our behaviors, and even our abilities are bounded by that. So as a coach, good coaches we find figure out where is that area of the possible of their people. What are the beliefs that are holding them back? And then help them set goals outside of those paradigms, not so far off in the corner that they can't believe it, but stretch goals and help them get there, and guess what happens? their actions, their feelings, their behaviors, their abilities tend to expand to meet those new beliefs. Have you seen that? All of a sudden they sell a different kind of client. Now they believe they can do it again. They sell a product. They can do it again. They see someone else do it in the organization. I can do it too. So one of our key things as a manager is understanding where they are and how do we build their beliefs. 3 points on how to do that. Number 1, help people set goals just beyond their current belief barriers. Number 2, intentionally have them step into that area of discomfort and try something new. But you're there to help support them. And number 3, use the outcome to build belief. Nothing builds belief like success, and even when you have a failure, it can be a learning opportunity. So a couple little tips there. Expanding belief boundaries, help them set achievable goals just out their comfort zone. Determine why they're important. Agree upon an action plan. Express your belief. Bump that. Then reinforce even the smallest evidence of progress, like that 3x5 card we shared with you. Okay? Another comment now from one of our experts.
I think early on it's ongoing with a brand new producer. And I think it's very unusual to see somebody come into the business, struggle miserably, and then become a superstar. This is just my personal opinion. I think you've got a small window that you've got to capture that person, get them out of the gate, get them thinking, helping them think the right way, giving them the tools and the resources and the mentoring, the coaching and the uplifting and the encouragement, setting them up for success. It's a mental game early on in the process. So once they see themselves doing the job, it's easier for them to envision doing more, and that paradigm automatically begins to expand and grow. So get that paradigm opened up, get them expanding their view of the possibilities early on in the process, and then you've got a big hoop to run through instead of a small keyhole that you're looking through.
Gary really leads us into the third tip, the power of preparation, when he said you have a really small window of opportunity with that new advisor. And so it's critical that the more preparation, the more you understand your advisors, understand yourself, and prepare for those conversations and coaching, the more impact you can have on their lives, their view of potential, their income as well. And as we look at the power of preparation, it really is combined with understanding yourself, understanding your advisors, and then wrapping that information into how you'll prepare to have really impactful conversations and coaching with them. How many of you have been through different styles, different behavior styles, 4 quadrants, disc, birds, colors? Okay, absolutely. The styles that we're going to be talking about today are talker, doer, supporter, and controller, because they're easy to identify. They're also easy to remember. And as we look at coaching to different styles and learning about what your style is, and also how you can best communicate with your advisor the way they like to be communicated with, we look at the needs and the things that are important to different styles. And if you look at the top of the behavior styles clock, it's recognition for talkers and doers. At the other end of the spectrum, the supporters and controllers, security is super important to them. On the right side of your screen, for doers and controllers, results is their focus. And on the left side of your screen, talkers and supporters are more focused on people and the process. So on page 12 of your handout, we've given you some tips there, but also some space to fill in as we go through really quickly. The talker, they're outgoing and friendly, they're high energy, emotional levels higher, they value personal relationships, and when you're coaching or talking with them, they appreciate that if you communicate with enthusiasm. And doers are bottom line, get it done, focused on their objective to achieve. They make quick decisions, and when you coach them, they appreciate conviction, you speaking with conviction. Controllers are our detail-oriented people. They have a lower energy level. They want to weigh all the options. They're great with their compliance and regulations. And when you speak with them, have your I's dotted, T's crossed, and speak with accuracy. And the final quadrant is supporters. They like the trusting relationships. They're laid back, they're friendly, they need time to process. I recently attended a LIMRA webinar that was talking about the new generation of agents and the shift to team-based selling. Supporters are great team players and would be a great resource for that. And as you coach with them, speak with warmth and encouraging that relationship. So we've given you on page 13 some more coaching tips as you prepare, plus some Harvard Business Review coaching tips. And I love the quote at the bottom, "Coaching has turned careers around." And then on the next 2 pages, these are for you to do as well. Your first one's identifying an advisor and what their style is, and then identifying your own style. And at the bottom of those columns, just jot down talker, doer, supporter, controller, so that you know what those columns are as we finish up. And a final thought on coaching to behavior styles comes from our coach, Tracy.
I think you bring your strength to coaching. So whatever your behavioral style is, you bring that to the table. I think as the coach, the onus is on you to adapt your style to the person that you're coaching.
Okay, a couple of preparation tips. I wanted to add some things here you can take away and study on your own. The preparation tips on the next page, you've got a variety of things. Determine location and timing. We won't walk through all these. Assess your skills and attitudes. Identify the competence and confidence of the person being coached. Assess your relationship with that person. And finally, define your objectives and expectations and plan the coaching dialogue. Now, in your handout, you've got those on page 16. Then on page 17 is a sample coaching planning tool. So you're welcome to use this as you think about planning out your coaching sessions. Instead of just shooting from the hip, actually going in with a good plan. Now, to help you do that, the final thing is to share with you a coaching process.
Part of it's encouragement, part of it's expectations. And I think sometimes, asking that question, what do you want? Mike, if you had to describe to me where you want to be from family, from an economic standpoint, it's almost a fact finder with that individual. So rather than me defining it and limiting where you want to go, you tell me, what do you want to accomplish this year? How can I help you? What do you think we can work on together that will enable you to accomplish those goals and objectives?
And here's a coaching process. You've got that on the planning tool. If you think about preparing for the coaching session, and then how do we, number one, ask questions to uncover the goals. Number two, listen without distractions and interruptions. Number three is to actually coach them then on knowledge, skills, or attitudes. Praise them on specific behaviors, and then challenge them to become their best. And a piece that's often left out is the back part, the follow-up. Hold them accountable and follow up with whether they accomplish it or not and how you can help them. We're talking about really 2 types of coaching. On the spot, we call coaching moments, or a sit-down planned coaching session. The goal is to give you some ideas that hopefully you can have a stronger coaching culture that's a sustainable culture.
You really do need to focus in on those high performers in your teams and make sure that you're giving them their due. They're the ones that are performing for you. They're the ones that continue to thrive and just love the job they do sometimes, but you got to make sure you're recognizing them as well, because if you don't, those are going to be the first people that are going to walk out the door.
Okay, in your handouts, you've got some key principles of coaching to look at. You want to pick out, before you leave LAMP, one or two of those you want to set as a goal to work on to improve. As we wrap up today, I want to thank you for being here. A couple of things. We promised in the app and in the promo that you'd get a $90 assessment. You're welcome to have that. It's a more in-depth look at 18 different dimensions of coaching. If you'd like to get that, it's an online assessment. We'll have a bowl up here. Just put your business card in there, and we'll send you a link. You can do that online. It'll send you back a report in a PDF about your coaching style. So you're welcome to do that. Number two, at our booth, if you'd like a book on some of these concepts, come by, just ask us at booth 204 at Terri Solutions for a book. We'll give you a free book to walk away with. Number three is we do coaching certifications and other sales certifications. You're welcome to evaluate at no charge. Come to Nashville, Tennessee, or Scottsdale, Arizona, and go through that at no charge to evaluate. So 3 things there. On behalf of Terri and myself, one more thing.
Free trip and training.
Oh, we're also having a drawing for up to $10,000 worth of training. So come by and put your card in, fill out for that. It's actually your airfare, your hotel, certification, and materials for up to 10 people to do some training if you come by our booth. So with that, on behalf of Terri, myself, and the whole team, thank you for being here, and have a fun rest of the LAMP.
Thank you very much.